Sheilagh, thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for connecting us to the St. John City Hall and letting us use the council chamber to visit with you today.
Absolutely.
For people in the maritime provinces and in parts of Newfoundland who might not know you, you were born in St. John's, it's been your home.
Mm-hmm.
You're an art photographer, professional photographer.
Yes.
Single mother, 3 school-aged children.
Yes.
And in 2009, you run for city council in St. John's, and you get more votes than any other candidate, including the mayor. So my question is, what's a nice woman like you doing in a place like this?
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm all about life being the journey. I'm a community advocate. I'm somebody who is very much from this place. Born and raised in St. John's. And I've been extremely involved in many community organizations and not-for-profit groups my entire life. And the interesting thing that I have discovered is that you can make all kinds of plans to be this when you grow up, or to have that career when you finish a program. But for me, I guess I'm an experiential learner. I'm very interested in our society. I'm very interested in human nature. And these are the things that kind of drew me as a photographer into the field of photography. It wasn't the technical side of photography that was the exciting part for me. My growth into that particular area was because of my drive to understand the human experience a little bit better. And it's also the area that I've been extremely involved in terms of social activism and community not-for-profit groups, and just, I guess, a general sense of well-being and interest in the local community here in St. John's.
So where does that come from?
I think a part of it is your upbringing. I think part of it is where you come from. I have a very diverse background. Both of my parents are Newfoundlanders. Both actually came from the west coast of the island. My mother's was French Mi'kmaq. So she was a Cormier from the west coast of the island, came from a huge French Mi'kmaq family, with 14 in her family, farming and living off the land. And my dad, whose family originally came from St. John's, his connection to Corner Brook was that his dad was one of the managers at Bowater. But the O'Leary side of the family certainly came from St. John's, and they had a long history of mariner experience.
So do you have Aboriginal status?
Yes, I do. I'm an Alapu band member, a Mi'kmaq Alapu band member, myself and my children.
That's probably a first for a St. John City Councillor.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's a fairly new recognition. Number one, the fact that the Alapu band has finally been recognized in Newfoundland. Of course, it's a Mi'kmaq band that is landless. We do not have a reservation because, of course, it's very widespread. But it's been a long time in negotiation, and the day has come where the affirmation and the acknowledgement has finally come to fruition. And I'm very pleased, especially on behalf of my mother, who grew up in a very different era. It wasn't the kind of feeling that I have now about acknowledgement and reclaiming that wonderful part of who you are, heritage-wise, genetic-wise, was not something that she had the choice of when she was growing up. There was a lot of negative slurs that were put on people who are of Native background when in an earlier year, and those times are changing, hopefully.
So, when do you leave home?
I moved out when I was 17 years old. I had a wonderful family life. I had 2 parents with a diverse background. I had 4 siblings, 3 older brothers and an older sister. Very, very athletic family. We were all jocks, and very involved in different community sports organizations of all different sorts. But we're all very independent thinkers and very strong opinions, and we were taught to be like that. And once it became clear to me that I needed to stretch my wings and move out and kind of find my way, I decided, I needed to move out of my parents' home, and I moved into the downtown core of St. John's.
Dove into downtown
St. John's at 17, fresh out of Holy Heart of Mary High School after 1 year of university, and decided, no,
Was Holy Heart still just all-girls school then?
It was still an all-girls school then. Over 2,000 all-girls and
run by nuns.
And run by nuns. And so, my experience, my education was phenomenal. It was really fantastic, I have to say, but it was very, very narrow, and I was very naive in lots of ways. And so I think I really craved learning more about society, learning more about human nature. I needed to get out there.
So what did you do to pay the bills when you were 17, living on your own downtown?
Well, one of my first jobs that I got was actually as a group home counselor. And immediately I went right into it. So it wasn't slinging burgers or that kind of stuff right off the bat. As a fairly well-educated woman, even young at that stage of the game, I had a good sensibility and such about community needs. And so I applied for a position to be a support worker in a group home for individuals with a myriad of different mental challenges. And I worked there for, probably about a year and a half. And did a lot of shift work, but it was a fantastic experience for me. And it was a natural fit to me. I'm a social extrovert. I love helping people, and it just fit.
So from a young age, did you kind of look at politics and say, I could do that, I could do better than those people are doing? Were you sort of always tracking that way, or was there a point when you said, geez, I really want to change the world I live in, I should go into politics?
I think I've always been interested in changing the world, and politics was an afterthought. I never really, honestly, ever thought about political life. I've always been very involved in social activism, very involved in community organizations. I've been on boards where I've sat as the vice president of the St. John's Native Friendship Center, the Coalition Against Violence, all kinds of women's organizations that help women, in issues of violence or otherwise. I've been very involved in peace and social justice movement in the community. And those are the things that basically drove me to the point of considering municipal politics. I never, ever imagined that I would be in this position. But as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a journey, right? You have all of these different desires to help and in the community. And it's not always a straight line. And I love that. And I like taking risks. I like taking the road that's going to bring you to an unknown area. And I'm also a lifelong learner. I'm very, very interested in continuing to learn and grow all the time, till the day I die. I just want to continue to learn as much as I possibly can and to give back. So I think with that combination, I think it seemed to be the right fit. It came to a pivotal point in our community where I'm so proud to be living in this place. I love St. John's. I love Newfoundland and Labrador. I made a very concerted effort to stay here after I had developed my career as a photographer after that fact. And I watched many of my cultural proteges, my colleagues, move on to the mainland, Andrew Younghusband, Rick Mercer. These were all real good friends of mine that we kind of grew up in the arts around the same time. I'm a little bit older. And but in order for people to progress, they had to move on to the larger cities, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew, for me, I really wanted to stay here, and I knew that meant taking a bit of a hit, probably on a financial level at that point in time. But I just felt so strongly that I really wanted to stay here and produce artwork here and be involved in the community here, and so that's why I stayed on. And then we had this era come in of incredible economic benefits.
I was going to say, when you decide to stay here, those were not boom times. They were lean times.
They were very lean. I remember when I was actually doing a lot of exhibition work, I could have my pick. I was always an independent. I very rarely actually dealt with commercial art galleries, so I oftentimes set up my own spaces and did my own exhibitions, and I, published a few books. And I a very, very self-motivated person, very independent. I worked very well as a freelancer.
Not rich, though.
No, definitely not rich financially, but rich in terms of the experience. My experience has been fantastic. So I'm not saying it wasn't hard times, and that's why I reference staying here actually meant that I had many of those hard times. But if you looked around in the downtown core of St. John's, every second or third business and such was closed in the late 80s, early 90s. But it was also a time of personal growth for me, and I was exploring myself as an artist and as a community activist, and I continued to grow and move and try different things, and they were always positive experiences. I really, have no regrets in any of the choices that I made, because they all brought me to another level.
So at some point you decide, I'm going to run for city council. Your friends say, Sheilagh, you should run for city council. Were you surprised at how successful you were? You got more votes than anybody.
Yes, I was surprised. Certainly I was surprised, and luckily for me, my campaign team, it kept me away from the figures and the stats and everything, so I could just go out and actually do the job that I was supposed to be doing, which was talk to the public and find out what they needed, what they desired. So that was my job, and that is my job, because I am that person who relates very well to people in our city. I'm a listener. I'm somebody who has, good skills in terms of talking to people, being open, sharing experiences.
Maybe raising 3 kids will help you do
well,
that.
absolutely. That certainly opens up a lot of communities to you too, with 2 teenagers and a 7-year-old, for sure. But I think it is my personality. It's inherent in my makeup. I'm somebody who really enjoys being around people. I'm a complete social creature.
What I'd like to try to understand is where your ambition comes from, but because not only do you run for city council at some point, now you're going to be a candidate for mayor, or now you are a candidate for mayor. Mm. So help me understand, or help us understand, Sheilagh O'Leary's ambition.
I think that there's phenomenal opportunities. I think that there's great opportunities to not only provide really strong leadership, but visioning. I think that we're in a time where we have the opportunities. We never had these opportunities before. Now that there's actually some money flowing through our economy, we have the opportunity to actually cultivate some incredible visioning around all kinds of areas around the city, around natural resources in our city, around what is the direction that we want to go. I mean, we've been at City Council here extremely involved in recent time, and because myself and a couple of other colleagues, Deputy Mayor Duff certainly and myself, were huge advocates to motivate this municipal plan review that was long overdue. And finally we got that on track, and we've been engaging the public in different wards and different special community areas to talk about what it is that they want to see happen within the next 5 to 10 years and beyond for the city. And that was crucial, that we go out and talk to the public about that. So we're actually in the stages right now of pooling together all of that data to find out. And it's my intent to ensure that doesn't sit in a filing cabinet somewhere, that actually a lot of those ideas that the public have brought forward, plus my own ideas that I would certainly like to advocate for, can be pushed forward and actually manifested, as opposed to, that was a great process, we'll put that over there. Direct action. I like things being very tactile. I like being hands-on. And I think that there's an opportunity with municipal government to do that. When you look at other levels of government with, say, the province or with the federal government, it's a much more cumbersome process in terms of policy making, and it's a much more lengthy amount of time to get from A to B to C. Municipal politics, when we come into the council chambers here, we're making decisions that affect people like that immediately. And I think that that's a very exciting place to be. And I think that's why I'm personally drawn to it, because I'm very direct action oriented. And so there are decisions that you can make that will affect people for decades to come. And I take that very seriously.
What are the consequences of being a politician for the rest of your life? I mean, you've lost privacy for sure. Certainly.
But I think for me as an artist, I'm somebody who really wears my heart on my sleeve. Not somebody who has a lot of secrecy around me. I've never been that. I'm so overt in some ways. Sometimes I actually give too much. But I think that in that process of sharing and giving so much, when you expose yourself, you also open up other people. And that's been my experience as an artist, is that once you open yourself up to people, then they open themselves up to you. They drop their shoulders, they relax, they realize that, oh, this person is actually sharing. They're giving something here, and I'm going to give back. And then you have an exchange, and then it's a really worthwhile discussion.
Do you miss being an artist?
I do. I certainly miss being an artist for sure. I know that I certainly will go back to it. Right now,
You do this full time, and you're.
look, this is a part-time position as a counselor right now, but I work full-time at it, and so that's the way I am. I'm really an all-or-nothing type of person. I can't go in and just pretend to twack away at something bit by bit. I'm a very passionate person, and when I dedicate myself to something, I give it 110%. So there's just no way that I can work part-time at this position. So what's
you have
happened
to put your
is...
camera aside? I mean,
Yeah.
I've always known you as a photographer. I have a hard time thinking about you not doing photography.
Well, it's, there's actually a really interesting kind of relationship between the two because of that position of exposing yourself and also being very creative and expressive. Those are skills, a skill base and such that easily transfer into how you manifest yourself politically as well. Because obviously how I express myself is huge, and how I express the ideas of the public that I'm trying to represent. I mean, that's crucial. So there are a lot of those skills actually that go hand in hand. And like I said, that road is, it's an interesting journey. The road is not a straight one. And things, as much as we might like to try to put people in boxes, oh, so-and-so is a this, or so-and-so is a that. Oftentimes we like to do that because it's easier for us to kind of get our heads around how individuals work, that they have a career, that they're this, you're a lawyer, so this is what you do. People are much more diverse than just a job title. And it was interesting, a while back and stuff, there was a coming together of women at an event called Ovations that the province gave off. And there was a lot of dialogue about that. And I remember Susan Knight had some discussion about the idea of career, like what is it you're going to be? Well, it's not about what you are going to be, it's about the things that you can contribute and the things that you can do and all of those experiences and how you can tie them together. So I think I have a much larger global kind of view of things, and I think that they're interrelated, and I certainly don't ever want to get tied down to one definition of this is who I am.
So it would be a mistake to say you have been traveling on a career path, in the sense that you had a goal and you set out.
I thought I was going to be a marine biologist when I was leaving Holy Heart of Mary High School. That's where I thought I was going. I loved biology. I loved the ocean culture that we live in. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. But as it turns out, when I got to university, that wasn't really what I really wanted to do. And then it became clear that no, really it was more about the human side of things that I was interested in. And so then that brought me into the arts, that brought me into social sciences. I did a lot of anthropology, sociology courses at university. I did go away to study photography, but I think the basis of my education has been as a result of my community involvement. And that includes from the time that I was involved in the kind of upbringing I had from my parents, who were very involved in the community. My mom was a nurse who worked in geriatrics and had a wonderful life experience as such, working with seniors, and was very well respected in her field. And my dad, who was a salesman and was all over the place and knew everybody and was a huge sports advocate and had a tryout with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so, I mean, so I know we're anxious to put a title on people, that you're this or you're that. But I really feel that we cut ourselves off if we just define ourselves by a job title. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities there to have broad visioning when you actually have multiple experiences in your life. So I've had, okay, I've been an artist for over 25 years. That means I was, a small businesswoman. That doesn't mean that I was just, doing exhibitions. That means I had to run a production company. I had to actually feed my family as a single parent for many, many years on a business ideal where I did freelance photography, I did it in an artistic style, but I also had to do all of the production values and such behind that too. So it wasn't just about making nice pictures and putting them on the wall. There's a machine behind all of that and a learning curve that you develop. And all of those same skills are the same ones that we do in any other business realm or in any other kind of opportunity, like with the City of St. John's here with our City Council. The opportunity is here to not only, we're not just running a business here, we're not running a business, we're running a social networking opportunity. We're trying to make the best city for the citizens to live in, which means that we have to be fiscally responsible and obviously smart with money because we're using the taxpayers' money. But we also have an opportunity to be creative about how to create quality of life for people and all of those other issues that come into general well-being and living in a community.
So it'd be fair to say it's difficult to pigeonhole Sheilagh O'Leary's career, but you are a townie.
Absolutely, I'm a townie. Both of my parents.
People in the Maritimes might not understand being a townie, but you can.
Both of my parents.
You are a townie.
My parents are Bayman, and I was born and raised in St. John's, and I am a pure townie. I'm a townie.
Then it won't surprise anybody you want to be the mayor.
Well, there you go. I'm deeply ingrained in the fabric of this community, and I think because of my experience of working in so many different fields, it's allowed me to have some insight into so many different communities. I mean, yes, quite obviously the arts community and the cultural community is one of them. And that involves the heritage community because I value things that the reasons why we are here, the history of the city of St. John's, the reason why we are here and the history and the oldest city in North America and all that brings in it is huge. It's ingrained in who we are. So we want to take that. We want to have an opportunity to revere that. We don't want to live in a petri dish where we're just living in some sort of historic bubble, because we live in a modern society with all kinds of economic boom going on and great opportunities in the creative economy and otherwise. But at the same time, let's not forget the fabric of why we are here and who we are and how we can manifest that and take that along with us and put that in our pocket and bring that along with us on the ride that we're on.
Let me ask you about the ride, because I remember the lean times in St. John's. Mm-hmm. And people on the mainland read about the boom in St. John's, but this is a long overdue, welcome boom.
Yes. Certainly.
Not an easy thing to manage, and not everybody's boat is rising with the tide.
Absolutely.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, good business opportunities are there, and they will take care of themselves. There's no doubt about that. And certainly, as a city, we need to encourage whatever kind of economic potential we have. But I'm certainly, first and foremost, very, very concerned about maintaining a quality of life for the livers, the people who actually built this community in the first place. And I'm talking about going way back. I mean, we can talk about ancient history, we can talk about, recent history. But I mean, number one, right off the top of is our seniors in our community. We have a very heavy aging demographic in our communities. These are the people, the citizens who had to live through the hard times and built this community in the hard times. And I think it's absolutely important that we take care of those individuals in our community and ensure that they don't get squeezed out in this economic boom, as we see in many other communities that happen. I mean, right across the world, but certainly across North America. Because in times of economic prosperity, we know that this divide can happen where, there's lots of people who are living high and making great money and such like that. And there's a trickle down to that, but then there's others who really are suffering under it. And there are a number of ill effects. It's not just the cost of living for seniors, but also we're talking about crime rates increasing, drugs and hard drugs on the street and things like that we never really had to deal with before in our city. And those are issues that are growing all the time, and they come out of prosperous times.
Yeah, I would think being on a fixed income, 65 years old, and trying to cope in this rental market That's a tough combination.
Absolutely. So there's a number of ways that we can approach that, and I've been extremely involved, especially with seniors' housing issues and things like that. And there are a number of ways that we can modify ourselves. Like, I mean, it's like eating that elephant. You do it one bite at a time. You keep on changing, regulations so that we can make it a little bit easier and such on people. There's no magic pill that changes everything overnight. But the Seniors Housing Forum, which happened earlier the year, had a great discussion from the community about how we can make it better for seniors, how we can enable seniors to stay in their homes for as longer periods of time, maybe till the end of their lives. This would be the ideal scenario. So how do we do that? How do we modify our development regulations to enable people to actually transition in their own homes? And I find that a really interesting area because, whether or not you're talking about basement apartments or apartments, dual apartments and things like that. But how you actually whether or not you actually put a handle that you can actually twist this way or a lever. Like, there are things that you can do when you actually build a house first and foremost that actually would enable a young couple to live in that house, and if they so choose, to age in that house right till their senior years. And you can modify your house so that you can have a bathroom on the same level and all your personal needs and such will be met when your body is not the way it used to be and such when you were in your earlier years.
I'd like to ask you about family, move away from issues in a little bit of time we have left.
Okay.
How are your kids about you being a politician and wanting to be the mayor?
It's interesting because, of course, you don't turn it off. I mean, anybody who lives a political life knows that there's no on-off switch. It's day and night. It's 24/7. And it's not just because of people approaching you or calling your home or calling the office or whatever. You can't lose it. It becomes a part of your fabric. So my children are very exposed to all the issues that I certainly am advocating for at City Council. We talk about it at the dinner table. They have to listen to all the news reports just like I do on the radio or in the news. And when I've got red steam coming out of my ears, they're the ones who are going to be the first hit. They're the ones who hear it. And it's really interesting, actually, because my oldest is very, politically, oh yeah, he's ready to come on board and such whenever I have an issue that I'm fighting for. My daughter, who is probably, in terms of personality, is very similar to me, says, oh, I hate politics. I'm completely apolitical. And of course, what does she do but run for vice president of her class? So I find it interesting. It's all buried in there, but I think that they have their own form of leadership within their own communities. And I think the most important thing for me, and of course I have a 7-year-old who's just completely being raised in it, but I think the most important thing is just showing them mentorship, that there are possibilities. Number one, that you can lead in whatever way that you want to, and that you can take a chance and make a change. But also I want to be that kind of role model as a woman as well for them. I feel it's very important. And they do make sacrifices as a result of it, there's no doubt about it. There are nights and stuff where they have to do the babysitting, they have to do that and such in order for me to get out and see the public. But they are learning I think that it's a great experience for them to learn how you can contribute to your community and make it a really worthwhile experience.
Well, your life's a great balancing act. I'm really pleased you took time to visit with us today, and we wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Watch with interest in September, and the people go to the polls in St. John's.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the experience to be here and to chat and tell you my story.
Thanks so much.
Okay.